Alright, so I'm back on the Mx5. Today we're going to be cutting out, hopefully, all this section here, and I want to try and get all that, or as much of that removed as I can, and get this fuel tank out. Taking the fuel tank out from the top. So, crack on with it now. Right, as hopefully you saw there, I've been stripping away at this top part. This piece can go. That's just spot welded on. This is like the main part of the chassis now that may well extend up. So if I cut the lip off and we look at extending that towards the cabriolet, we've got the mounting points for the subframe. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to shave off that section there and maybe box that down to this chassis leg. So if I box that up, maybe cut that section out and tie it in a little bit lower up, it'll give me a bit of a better height. I still need to cut off all that section there and do the same on the other side as I've just done here after I've took that off. This is going to be cut about there. Get rid of that rust there. I've already drilled out them spot welds, and I need to clean off that seam sealer from there and potentially try and unpick these spots as well. This looks like quite a structural piece, but we're gonna have to lose that. We'll have to remake something for there because obviously we're too short. I may even be better off just cutting all this off up to clean metal rather than messing around with all the spot welds, to be fair, and just maybe joggle the edge. I'm gonna have to repair this section here anyway, so it might just be better to cut all the crap off and start again and refabricate, because obviously we're going to have to extend the floor anyway, and we'll put some bead rolls in it and get it somewhere like. Right, hopefully you saw on the time lapse where I just got up to then. Take you round. So this side was a bit easier to cut, so I was able to go straight through the sill there. I knew where to cut. I've still got to strip off the sill, but obviously because I'm on a single post ramp I need to flip the car around. So cleaned off back to this same position as I did on the other side. I need to have a good tidy up of all my tools. Need to get this corner out here, this like sort of bucket area, to expose the chassis rails. I'll show you better from the other side. So again, we're looking similar now. The car's not really moved either, which is a bonus. So there's a lot of structural rigidity. It's sort of 3 or 4 pieces thick here, but we're gonna have to lose all of that to extend the wheelbase over. So I'm gonna have to, I think I'm just gonna grind straight through so that I can weld onto clean metal and do the same down here. As I said, I'll make that small repair there to extend that over, hopefully miss all these swage lines. If I just grind straight across a nice straight line and joggle the edge of the next panel, I'll put a lap on it, that should be plenty strong enough. And then underneath, I'm thinking if I measure the chassis leg, maybe cut that section out because of the dip in it, and if we push through potentially a piece of tight fitting box section, that should extend the wheelbase quite nicely. Drill and plug weld it all the way through and then seam weld it, and then on top of it put another piece of chassis leg on. And then on the sides, let's say we're going to chop probably there, so we'll be on a staggered joint hopefully, and then I will remake from maybe here this structure over, depending on how it sits in the escort. Now I've done most of the cutting, I've started lubricating up some of the bolts I need to do. I'm going to try and get a second one of these structures between the diff and the gearbox, and I'll metal plate it between, as I think I've already mentioned, but I'll try and do an aluminium weld and actually extend it over so it goes straight from here. So I'm thinking if I cut that there, I can weld on an extension piece, but we'll have to see how that works out. Now I'm probably on the edge of the support on this lift now, because I've got so much weight out the back. I've managed to get this bar as far back as possible, so I've still got plenty of strength in it, but I am going to need to ratchet strap it to this central arm soon, and maybe around here just to make sure we don't get any movement. But we'll probably be cutting the back end off before that's necessary. Right, so from the top end now it's clear, and obviously we've cut away both sides. This is probably going to get cut across there, but I'm going to leave it in for now because it might be that I can mount this up to the back of the cabriolet in a way that's not going to interfere with the seats. I don't want to touch this section here, so other than maybe shaving it down a little bit and maybe cutting through that section and running a box section through from there to up there, I think that should be okay for either putting a thin seat on, or I might even go for a single rear seat or just a little bench for cushioning and just fake it on the sides. So I'll see about that. I need to get the fuel tank out, and I definitely need to cut this section here, but I'd like to be able to maybe cut down there. This will be obviously when the escort's back. Cut down there, maybe shape that up and run either a box section or a steel bar. Might even be better with a steel bar down there, because that way I can bend it. And if I do that on both sides, we've got a nice strong connection. Right, for anyone safety conscious, I've hit the point now where I thought I'd better strap it down to the ramp. This arm's not doing anything, but it's now a lot more firm than it was because I've strapped this one down. It's not overly tight because obviously I don't want to pull the arm out, and unfortunately my ramp's not got locking arms, but it's secure now. The whole ramp moves rather than the car. And the front, I've managed to wrap around the main bar. Now that one is quite tight. So hopefully we won't have any accidents. Right, I'm ruined and I forgot to record it, but I've managed to pull the fuel tank out from the top. So bit of messing around, but we've got the fuel tank out. I want to leave that sort of cross member in place, at least for now, until we get it placed into the escort. So at least then we know what we're left with. I think what I'm going to do as well is maybe box a little bit further down here, but that's the back end now, stripped to the stage I want it at. Just need to unpick them spots there, just take that little bit off. I was deliberating over cutting this section out here. I started drilling the spot welds, but I'm not going to bother with that now, because potentially that whole lot's going to get chopped flush with the tunnel anyway, so there's not going to be much point. I'm going to keep that bit there because that's obviously strengthening, and obviously that bit there. So my join is going to be round about there to somewhere in between there. So that's really thick there, and there's another strengthening plate right the way across the back as well, which will be like the kick plate of where the back seats sit. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get the seat as low as I want, but I can definitely shave a few inches out of this once I've taken like the nuts off there and put a 40x40 box section, and I'll stitch it in, and we'll see if we can get some sort of a bend on it as well, using the tube bender, which is, I can possibly do it, I'm just not 100% sure yet. Might have to design a former, but we're starting to get there. I'm going to clear this back end off here and that off there, and just clean the bottom of the sill off. I need to strap it back down to the ramp as well, and then we're getting towards being ready. And then at that point we're getting towards being ready to get the escort back, so we can take some measurements. This can go up in the air out the way, or I can put it in the back potentially, because that's going to be swapped with the escort hopefully. Right, so hopefully you can understand where I'm going with this now. I've knocked out the bump that was in the chassis rail. Don't forget that section will be cut out. I'm leaving, there's a lip there, and what I'll do is I'll notch the bottom of the box section and re-weld a piece back in. I'm going to be putting quite a lot of holes through the bottom of the chassis rail, similar to what's in, but I'm going to plug weld onto the bottom of this, as well as welding up on the sides when it's in. So the idea is I'm going to start back there, all the way back. We've got about 150mm of extension. This will be a piece all the way through, all the way around, and touching and welded up to the rear subframe mount. The bend or the radius that I'm going to have to put on that, I'll put on in sections and get it as close as I possibly can. Then bolt through in numerous places through to the chassis rail. I'll do the same on the other side. I only want to do one at a time. I'll do the same then on the other side, and then I can cut through the car and essentially move up to the next 2 points, and that should keep it pretty much in line. It's going to be a bit of messing around to make sure that the pieces are lined up, but I can do that with a laser level down the centre of the chassis rail from back to front, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then we've got the seat mounting point, because I'm going to use the Mazda seats, at least for now. That'll just have to get a slight notch around it to go over the slight bump. And then at the front, I'll clean up this, and that'll cover the little bit of gap that we've got, and then we can put the cap back on there. But while this is open, I'm going to get the drill with a wheel on it as far in as I can, clean up the bits of surface rust on it, and just put a bit of rust treatment on it. Alright, so I'm going to call it a day on this. Try and get myself some box section sorted this week and start looking at getting all the framing in, maybe next weekend or possibly in the week if I can, if I get enough time. And then obviously think about getting the Escort back